From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Anne Waodo.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, Senate investigates INEC's elimination in Warri Federal Constituency, Delta State, after petition highlights alleged irregularities, bias and marginalization in boundary adjustments. House of Representatives approves President Tinubu's request to borrow 1.5 trillion naira from domestic debt market to cover the budget's unfunded deficit gap. Civil society groups, electoral commissioners and politicians agree to re-evaluate Nigeria's democracy, strengthen institutions and create a model of addressing citizens' concerns effectively. And U.S. lawmakers released 23,000 pages from Jeffrey Epstein's estate, revealing documents that includes references to President Donald Trump.
On business news, Nigeria's oil output climbs to 1.40 million barrels per day in October, but still misses its OPEC quota for the third straight month.
On sports news tonight, Super Eagles are back in training, shifting focus to the playoff match against Panthers of Gabon after resolving pay dispute with the Nigeria Football Federation.
And from the nation's capital, IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu petitions the Court of Appeal in Abuja to suspend further trial proceedings by Justice James Omotosho at the Federal High Court.
We begin tonight with a charge coming from the President, Bola Tinubu, to news editors and journalists. This charge, your responsibilities with wisdom, fairness, and a strong sense of national duty. Well, that charge was made when he declared open the 21st conference of the Nigerian Guild of Editors held at the State House in Abuja, describing the role of editors in the sustenance of democracy as central and indispensable. The President says he welcomes constructive criticism. Our correspondent, Delia Moyeni, reports.
It's the 21st edition of the annual Editors Conference, organized by the Nigerian Guild of Editors. This is the first time a seasoned president will be attending the conference. And this year, the focus is on the role of editors in democratic governance and national cohesion. The conference also attracts some state governors, members of the Federal Executive Council, aides of the President, heads of federal agencies, leaders of media organizations, including top managers from Channels Television, past and present leadership of the Nigerian Guild of Editors, and traditional rulers, amongst others, who have converged to exchange ideas and examine issues of governance as well as national development. The Guild uses the opportunity to state their requests to the President.
Corporate tax relief. That's for between 5 to 10 years, which will enable media houses to stabilize, meet operating costs, and sustain their watchdog role. Number two, sir, VAT exemption. In recognition of its social responsibility role, the media should be exempted from VAT on essential tools and equipment.
The keynote speaker of the conference is Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State. He examines the strategic role of editors in promoting electoral integrity.
When you, editors and gatekeepers, choose narratives that amplify division, because division drives sales, you feed the polarization and make your own work even harder. Post-2023, trust fractured because the narratives around the election became tribal, fragmented, and in some cases, inflammatory.
His views are re-echoed by the Minister of Information and National Orientation.
As we deliberate here today, I charge you, my colleagues, to see yourselves as essential partners in national renewal. The government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has demonstrated its faith in you through his actions, not just his words. We invite you, therefore, to engage, to critique constructively, and to report with utmost responsibility.
On his part, President Bola Tinubu urged the editors to discharge their responsibilities with national interest above personal interests.
As editors and managers of the national information space, you shape narratives, you influence public understanding, you decide what becomes national focus and how our collective challenges are interpreted. The weight of that responsibility is extremely significant. It must be exercised with wisdom, fairness, and a strong sense of national duty.
He reaffirms his commitment to the development of Nigeria.
Yes, we are challenged by terrorism, banditry, and others. We recognize that. Are we doing something about it? Are we inspiring the armed forces? Are we encouraging them to fight? They put their lives on the line to defend the national sovereignty of this country. It is our responsibility.
The highlight of the event is the presentation of plaques to the Minister of Information, Governor Hope Uzodinma, and President Bola Tinubu in recognition of their support to the Nigerian Guild of Editors. Daily Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
We head to the Red Chamber now, where the Senate has resolved to investigate the ongoing delineation exercise conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in Warri Federal Constituency of Delta State, following concerns of alleged marginalization and irregularities raised in a petition before the upper chamber today. The resolution followed a motion sponsored by Senator Simon Lalong from Plateau South, titled Urgent Need for Intervention to Prevent Imminent Political Crisis over the INEC delineation exercise in Warri Federal Constituency, Delta State. In his lead debate, Senator Lalong said that the motion was informed by a petition from the Shekiri ethnic nationality forwarded to the Senate Committee on Electoral Matters, alleging unjust treatment and marginalization of the Shekiri people in the recent INEC ward delineation exercise. However, tension flared during the debate when Senator Joel Onowapo Thomas from Delta South objected to the discussion, arguing that the matter is sub judice because it's already before a court. A National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Umezuki, reports.
It's a loaded agenda for the Red Chamber on the second legislative day of the week as the Deputy Senate President again chairs.
Your Excellency,
minutes into the plenary session, the Senate leader makes a clarification on the alleged plot to impeach the Senate President.
we are not taking this misinformation for granted. It's not only that we are all united behind the leadership of His Excellency Senator Godswill Obot Akpabio as President of the Senate, we are also developing a zero level of tolerance to distraction.
Another lawmaker raised a different kind of concern in a motion on the political crisis that has trailed the delineation exercise in Warri Federal Constituency by INEC.
In the alleged delineation exercise, two communities, Baramatu and Oporoza, which that you had 1 ward each, have been increased to 8 wards out of 19 created in Warri Southwest. However, the insecurity community, which had 6 wards previously, had been reduced to 5 wards.
A group of people have taken INEC to court in respect of the outcome of the delineation. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues,
I think that this matter should be rested and allow due process to continue in the courts.
However, the matter escalated when Senator Lalong, in his argument, dropped a comment referring to the villa.
The reference, even from the villa, is not a hidden document.
Is somebody that is guiding this motion from what he has said?
No, he's an interested party.
No, don't talk. Senator Jewel,
allow the Senate to...
At this point, the Senate leader intervenes.
We also should not lose sight of the point made by the Secretary Senator Joel Onowakbo that this matter is before the court.
The Senate also passed Informal Sector Employment Regulation Bill 2025, aimed at protecting and formalizing the employment of domestic workers, apprentices, interns, and other informal sector employees across Nigeria.
Authority to take it and pass.
The bill prescribes 2 months imprisonment or a fine of 500,000 naira or both to an employer who deliberately employs persons below the age of 18 years. Meanwhile, the Senate has passed through second reading the National Primary Healthcare Development Bill 2025 to provide for a comprehensive framework for the delivery of quality and accessible primary healthcare services to strengthen community-based health systems and promote universal primary healthcare coverage. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Senate has approved President Bola Tinubu's request to raise 1.5 trillion naira in the domestic debt market as part of a borrowing plan on program to finance the unfunded portion of the 2025 budget deficit. This approval followed the adoption of a report presented by the Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debts during plenary. In its report, the committee says the 2025 Appropriation Act provides a total expenditure of 59.99 trillion naira, representing an increase of 5.25 trillion naira over 54.7 trillion naira initially proposed by the executive.
Calm returns to the House of Representatives as Wednesday's plenary session gets underway. The minority leader, through a motion of urgent national importance, calls for investigation into federal government abandoned properties.
The House notes that the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, as at 23rd August 2021, came up with a large quantum of about 11,866 abandoned landed properties and buildings by the federal government across the nation, and that this has resulted into colossal waste of resources worth over 20 trillion naira.
A point of order is raised by a lawmaker from Anambra State following the just concluded governorship election in the state.
We have many people registering, but we have not weeded off our register of dead people. I can tell you authoritatively that my mom died in 2013, and she has been continuously be counted as collected PVC. So when you look at that, you will see in Anambra State that we have 2-point-something million registered voters, while we have huge turnout for that election, yet it was adjourned low turnout. So I want us to compel the new INEC chairman to do something about our voters register.
Next, the alleged violation of the Petroleum Industry Act by oil and gas companies prompts a resolution for investigation.
Worried that some oil companies violated the provisions of Section 236 of the PIA by failing to incorporate the host communities development trust in their areas of operation within the period stipulated in the Act.
The House then resolves into the Committee of Supply chaired by the Deputy Speaker, where it considers and approves the President's latest borrowing request.
The committee recommends that the House of Representatives do approve the President's request to establish a 1,150 billion naira borrowing program in the domestic debt market to close the unfunded deficit gap created by the increase in the budget size over and above the prior approved revenue and borrowing plan. Recommendation 1.
Meanwhile, worried that certain deductions are allegedly being made from NLNG proceeds without the formal notification, disclosure, or approval of the federal government. The House has mandated its Committee on Gas Resources to investigate the operations, financial reporting, and remittances of NNPC LNG Limited with respect to NLNG. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, Coordinating Minister of Health Professor Mohammed Ali Pate reports that 37 of 41 key performance indicators under the Presidential Health Reform Commitments have been successfully achieved to date. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live from Channels Television, Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. President Tinubu urges new editors and journalists to perform their duties responsibly with fairness, wisdom, and a strong commitment to national service. Senate investigates INEC's alienation in Warri Federal Constituency of Delta State after petition highlights alleged irregularities, bias, and marginalization in boundary adjustments. House of Representatives approves President Tinubu's request to borrow 1.15 trillion naira from domestic debt market to cover the budget's unfunded deficit gap. And U.S. lawmakers released 23,000 pages of Jeffrey Epstein's estate, revealing documents that include references to President Trump. Members of the civil society organization are advocating the need to reevaluate Nigeria's democracy and adopt a model that works best for its people. The call to rethink Nigeria's democracy was at the core of discussions at the Future of Democracy Summit in Abuja. Both members of the civil society groups, resident electoral commissioners, and politicians who attended that summit agreed with the call to reevaluate the nation's democracy, strengthen its institution, and develop a model that addresses the concerns of its citizens.
Can we just come forward?
Stakeholders from the civil society, resident electoral commissioners, and representatives of some political parties are attending this summit in Abuja on the future of democracy in Nigeria. The summit provides a platform for participants to share ideas on the progress, fault lines, and recommendations for the enhancement of democracy in Nigeria.
By bringing together voices from government, legislature, civil society, academia, media, and citizens, we reaffirm our collective responsibility to ensure that democratic reforms are not episodic, but enduring, not elite-driven, but citizen-centered.
This conference offers us a space to engage deeply with the questions to assess how our democracy can evolve to meet the demands of a new generation,
to defend democratic values, to rebuild trust in governance, and to ensure that the promise of democracy translates into lived realities of freedom, equality, and shared prosperity.
Away from the challenges and progress made with democracy since 1999, the summit also makes recommendations on what should be done to protect the future of Nigeria's democracy.
The nature of this country is defined as a social democracy. We have to struggle to enthrone social democracy. Social democracy is not a manifesto of socialism, but it shows that you can't have a democracy that does not take on board the primary needs and daily survival of the people in terms of the policy that they promote.
If our democracy must endure, it must include the aspiration and the needs of the people, whether they are poor or rich. We need people of courage to have democracy survive. You must have parties that are free, then you must have institutions of states that protect rights, that are independent of arbitrary control.
Thank you so much.
The consensus at this summit is that democracy is fast losing its appeal, and there is an urgent need to rethink democracy and make it work for the people.
One year on, and the celebrations are in full swing as Governor Monday Okpeholo of Edo State, his administration today marked its first anniversary with a day of music, dance, and reflection on the progress made so far. Dignitaries, including the APC National Chairman, in a colloquium at the Victor Waifo Creative Hub on Airport Road, Benin City, the Edo State capital, gathered to acknowledge the government's achievements, urging the governor to keep pushing forward in his development plan for the state.
So, Edo is really working again. Let me sincerely thank our father and leader, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GSFR, for his guidance, leadership, and immense support. Without him, much of our progress would not have been possible. To my cabinet members and political appointees and party leaders, thank you very much. Thank you. For the faith you have on me, and for allowing me to walk. Because if I was today settling fight, tomorrow settling fight, next tomorrow coming to your house to say, please, I beg, I won't have time to walk. I want to say a very big thank you to all of you. To our royal father, Oba Otokwe, I want to especially thank you for the prayers, the love, and the encouragement, the beautiful advice you have been giving me that is making things to work out in Edo State. Thank you very much. To our political leader in Edo State here, Adam Soshomole, Obulu, thank you very much.
The Coordinating Minister of Health, Professor Mohammed Ali Pate, says that 37 out of 41 key performance indicators under the presidential health reform commitments have been achieved so far, a development he's attributed to remarkable progress driven by improved alignment between national and subnational actors. Professor Pate was speaking at the 2025 Health Sector Joint Annual Review meeting in Abuja, and according to him, the federal government has reported major improvements in maternal and reproductive health indicators as the utilization of primary healthcare facilities under the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund rose from 10 million visits in 2024 to 45 million in the second quarter of 2025. Our correspondent Victoria Longjan reports.
Please be seated.
The Coordinating Minister of Health, Professor Mohammed Pate, is hosting critical players in the health sector and other dignitaries to the 2025 Joint Annual Review event. This accountability gathering with the theme, All Hands, One Mission, bringing Nigeria's health sector to light, provides an opportunity to take stock of Nigeria's health sector transformation journey, particularly since the launch of the Health Sector Renewal Investment Initiative and the signed compact with state governments and development partners to drive sector-wide reforms.
To address us,
Professor Pate then reels out the scorecard of the health sector so far.
And routine data has shown modest improvements in vaccination coverage for specific antigens. Thanks to Gavi and for the amazing support, I think we've hit most of our target for measles and rubella in addition to HPV, which is now a beacon of hope, I think, on the immunization stage globally. And the primary healthcare utilization in BHCPF facilities grew from 10 million visits in Q1 2024 to 37 million visits in Q1 2025 and to 45 million visits in Q2 2025, showing renewed public confidence in accessing primary health services.
Other speakers highlight developments in health financing, hinting the possibility of more revenue for the health sector.
Health has done well. The budget allocation, and I know there is a question of the gap, and I'll come to that, but the health sector budget in 2025, it rose by nearly 60%.
On average, I think it's about 29% revenue to GDP. When we came, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu inherited less than 8%. He has tasked us, rather to the coordinating minister of the economy, to lead us to at least 18% by end of 2026.
For development partners present, Nigeria has made remarkable strides in the health sector, particularly in its immunization campaigns.
We are committed to partner with Nigeria. That commitment is steadfast. It is unchanged. It remains strong.
The highlight of the event is the signing of an addendum to the Health Sector Renewal Compact, which will now include representatives of traditional and religious leaders, the private sector, and the local government.
Then, of course, the Health Sector Reform Coalition.
This updated compact signing signifies a new era and more commitment to accelerate better health outcomes for Nigerians. From Abuja, Victoria Longchan, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria's oil output climbs to 1.401 million barrels per day in October, but still misses its OPEC quota for the third straight month. And that's in business news. Please join us again. Welcome back. You're still watching the news at 10 on Channels Television. Let's head over to our nation's capital, Abuja, where Terry Ikumi is standing by to bring us more stories. Over to you, Terry.
Well, thank you very much, Anne. The detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, has asked the Court of Appeal Abuja to stay further proceedings on his trial by Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court, Abuja. According to the court documents filed, Kanu is praying the appeal courts to stop Justice Omotosho from delivering judgment in his case on November 20, 2025, as scheduled, pending the hearing and determination of the appeal against the High Court's decision in the case. Kanu premised his application on the grounds that, in spite of the jurisdictional questions raised before the Federal High Court, the trial court refused to rule on them. He added that the trial court refused to evaluate the evidence of the prosecution witnesses vis-à-vis the cross-examination questions to determine whether the evidence was discredited under cross-examination. Governor Diko Rada of Katsina State has reaffirmed his administration's unwavering commitment to ensuring that citizens in the state enjoy access to clean and safe water. The governor disclosed this when he flagged off the 31.8 billion naira Zubi Phase 1B water project, a historic initiative expected to end over 4 decades of poor water supply in the state. Speaking at a groundbreaking ceremony held at the Kafin Soli Booster Station, Governor Rada described the project as a promise finally fulfilled, noting that while the Zubi Dam was completed in 1983, its full potential to serve millions across Katsina had remained untapped. He explained that the project would not only provide clean and sustainable water, but also open new opportunities in agriculture, job creation, and industrial development.
This undertaking was an estimated cost exceeding over 31 billion, entrusted to Mutual Commitment Company Limited. Is not merely an engineering feat, it is declaration of intent, a solemn pledge that every citizen of Katsina State, whether residing in the bustling towns or the most secluded hamlets, shall enjoy the unfiltered access to clean, safe, and reliable water. Water, as we are all accurately aware, is not simply a commodity to be traded or measured. It is, in truth, a very essence of life, the most fundamental of all the natural endowments. The bedrock upon which the health, agriculture, industry, and human existence itself depend. To provide water is therefore an upon life. To guarantee its access is to dignify humanity.
Now, art lovers and enthusiasts are in for good times as the management of Stanbic IBTC Pensions Managers declares its readiness to keep supporting platforms that can deliver the best experiences. The Chief Executive Officer of the institution, Olumide Oyetan, made the remark at the ArtX Lagos 2025, where Stanbic IBTC Pension Managers Limited sponsored the library session of the event.
It's a remarkable moment for art lovers and enthusiasts who arrived at the venue of the ArtX Lagos event. The 10th installment, themed Imagining Otherwise No Matter the Tide, which explores how human imagination can help create thriving urban and global spaces with Lagos as a focal point.
The younger generation doesn't even really know about Festa 77, the greatest moments that happened in our nation. You will see that in Ojekere.
Today, Stanbic IBTC Pension Managers Limited is sponsoring the library, and they appear quite excited about the platform.
This year's theme, Imagining Otherwise, No Matter the Tide, couldn't be timelier. It speaks to our shared value in dreaming beyond limitations. It challenges us to look beyond the present moment, futures that are bold, inclusive, and lasting, even when the world feels uncertain. As a brand, we are especially proud to sponsor the library this year, a project that speaks to our belief in the power of knowledge and access. It is more than an installation, it's a living archive, a space for curiosity and connection, a place to pause, reflect, and imagine what is possible.
The ArtX Lagos 2025 attracts major players in the industry, books, galleries, films, exhibition, masterclasses, all leading to a walk down memory lane.
She will take you to J.T. Ojekere, a photographer who for 6 decades catalogued Nigeria's cultural identity. You will see images of students in Ibadan in the 1950s in unions that are looking more powerful than the black people you've ever seen in your lives.
For Stanbic IBTC Pension Managers, this is one of its many commitments to growing arts.
We are here to support, African artists. So not just at X, we even have the Fuse Festival, which is, that we're going to have next year, but we call it the Talent Hunt. We do tech, music, art, and fashion, and that is art as well. So we are, supporting the platform to tell our stories in an authentic way to the world, and we're incredibly proud of it.
The ArtX Lagos series, founded in 2016, to address the need for a major platform to showcase and support the breadth of African contemporary arts, aiming to restore Lagos as a leading global artistic center.
Well, that's all from the nation's capital. Back to Anne in Lagos for more on the news at 10.
Thank you very much, Terry. The federal government, through the Ministry of Finance, Incorporated MOFI, has taken a major step to deepen Nigeria's capital market with the listing of 1 trillion naira MOFI Real Estate Investment Fund on the main board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. And this move marks one of the largest real estate funds listings in the country's history, which is aimed at mobilizing capital markets for infrastructure and property development across Nigeria.
That's the sound of a closing gong on the Nigerian exchange to commemorate the listing of the Ministry of Finance Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund Series 2.
Saving and investment culture that we need
While speaking at the listing ceremony on the floor of the exchange in Lagos, the minister said the 1 trillion naira Series 2 investment fund with 1 billion units priced at 100 naira each represents a crucial milestone in Nigeria's efforts to mobilize private and institutional capital for affordable housing and sustainable development.
What we have listed today, you have made it possible at 100 naira per unit. You have made it possible for ordinary Nigerians to be able to be part of the saving and investment culture that we need for us to rely mainly on our own resources in order to grow and develop the economy. In this particular case, it's in the housing sector.
On his part, the managing director, CEO of Mofi, Amshok Tekang, shed more light on the fund's listing on the NGX, while the managing director of ARM Investment Managers, Kai Oga, commended the initiative as a catalyst for economic growth and market confidence.
This fund provides three critical leverages that the typical Nigerian requires. The first is long-term, low-cost mortgages. What is long-term? We're doing up to 20 years in terms of the tenor of the mortgages that our program provides.
Generally, a lot of Nigerians struggle as they start to work, just to build or create wealth, but housing gaps are there, and given that the MRIF program has been created, with a lot of considerations, the rates, while maybe not at its lowest, but it's very, very fair and reasonable, and people can take advantage of it.
With the listing of the Mofi Real Estate Investment Fund, the federal government is setting a new standard for asset optimization, one that merges public ownership with private sector efficiency.
Let's continue in the world of business with Laddie Williams.
Thanks, Sam. Well, in business news, Nigeria's crude oil production rose slightly in October to 1.4 million barrels per day, according to fresh data from OPEC, marking a modest recovery from September's output. However, Nigeria fell short of its OPEC production quota for the third consecutive month, extending a trend that has raised concerns about its ability to meet production targets. The report shows that while Nigeria's output has inched upward, issues such as oil theft, pipeline vandalism, and operational constraints continue to weigh heavily on performance. Meanwhile, on the global front, oil supply outpaced demand by around 500,000 barrels per day in October, signaling a potential cooling in market tightness. In a shift from earlier projections, the International Energy Agency now expects global oil demand to keep growing through 2050, softening its previous stance on an imminent peak in consumption. And to tax matters, the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele, has given clarity to the capital gains tax directive issued by the federal government. Speaking on Business Morning earlier today, Mr. Oyedele points that some of the areas of investments that are exempted from policy, which is set to take off in January next year, as well as the benefits that comes with it, is something we should watch out for. And in the midweek trade, the bull staged a comeback, gaining 2.6 trillion naira. Will it sustain? And John McCoy has the details.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, it does seem like a reassurance from the coordinating Minister of the Economy, as well as some clarifications from Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, has brought some calm into the market. Today, the market closed in the green after some sessions of red closes, and about half of what was lost yesterday has been regained. 2.593 trillion naira is what was gained. So we are back to the 92 trillion naira level, and the all share closed in the green 2.88%. We opened today at 141,000 level, but here we are closing at 145,000 level. Market mover today was the highest in getting attention from the investors because it opened at 429 naira 30 kobo, but closed at 472 naira at the close of trade. Let's look at the sectors and get more of what happened in the market. Yes, banking gained, recovered today, 7.39%. Thank God for that. First HOCO, UBA, GTCO, Access Code, you guys also did that. Consumer goods is also in the green today. Dangote Sugar and NASCON, they led that. Oil and gas, more than 4% in the green. Usual suspects, Aradel, top on the list, O&O, Japo Gold, they did that. So, for the first time in a while, we have the bull.
Thanks, Edie. To the global indexes now, European stocks closed broadly higher, continuing their upward trend this week on hopes that the U.S. government shutdown will end soon. Here's a snapshot of closing numbers. And that's it on business. It's back to Anne with the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Laddie. Outside our shores, let's join Simon Puse with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5.
U.S. House Democrats have released new emails to and from Jeffrey Epstein that reference President Donald Trump. One of the 3 exchanges is between Epstein, a convicted sex offender who died in 2019, and his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. An email from Epstein to Maxwell in April 2011 read, "I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump." The Democrats say the emails from the Epstein estate strike a blow against the White House's Epstein cover-up. Trump has consistently denied any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein. The White House says selectively leaked emails create a fake narrative. Dozens of Israeli settlers have launched arson attacks targeting a Palestinian warehouse, a Bedouin village and farmland in the north of the occupied West Bank. Video shows houses and vehicles in flames. Several Palestinians were injured. The incidents were the latest in a recent surge in settler violence, coinciding with the olive harvest season when Palestinians head to their agricultural land around towns and villages. It comes just after the UN's humanitarian office said the number of violent attacks by settlers last month was the highest since it began collecting figures nearly 20 years ago. Thick fog has enabled Russian troops to move further into the key strategic city of Pokrovsk in eastern Ukraine. Ukraine's 7th Airborne Assault Corps says weather conditions, particularly dense fog, have prompted Moscow to get increasing numbers into the ruined city and encircle Ukrainian forces. Russian forces have spent more than a year trying to seize the city. Ukraine's military says there may now be 300 to 500 Russians there, and President Volodymyr Zelensky says the situation remains difficult. At least 19 people have been killed in an airstrike on a suspected rebel camp in the Colombian province of Guaviare, according to the country's military. The attack targeted a dissident faction of the FARC rebel group, which engages in drug trafficking. Colombia's left-wing president, Gustavo Petro, had in the past been reluctant to use airstrikes to hit rebel camps, but following the breakdown of peace talks with several of Colombia's armed groups, he gave the green light for the military offensive. At least 6 people have died during a crowd crush at a military recruitment event in a stadium in Ghana. In a statement from Ghana's armed forces, Wednesday's tragic crush appeared to have been caused by an unexpected surge of applicants who breached security protocols and rushed into the gates. 22 others were injured, including 5 who remain in a critical condition. Thousands had turned up at El Wak Stadium in the capital Accra with the hope of joining the military. Officials say ancient statues and other artifacts have been stolen from Syria's National Museum in Damascus. The theft was discovered on Monday when staff reportedly found that one of the museum's doors had been broken from inside. The 6 missing statues were made of marble and dated back to the Roman era. Syria's Directorate General for Antiquities and Museums said it had opened an investigation to determine the circumstances surrounding the loss of a number of exhibits. A newly opened bridge in China's southwestern province of Sichuan has partially collapsed, creating a huge dust plume. Authorities had closed the 758-metre-long Hongqi Bridge on Monday after cracks appeared on nearby slopes and roads. On Tuesday afternoon, conditions on the mountainside worsened, triggering landslides that led to the collapse of part of the bridge. There were no reports of any casualties. And footage shows the moment Russia's first anthropomorphic robot, Aldol, fell just seconds after its debut at a technology event in Moscow. The robot was being led on stage to the soundtrack from the film Rocky before it suddenly lost its balance and fell. Assistants could then be seen scrambling to cover it with a cloth as the robot was removed.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. The Super Eagles returned to training ground earlier today after resolving the issue of match bonuses with the Nigeria Football Federation. In a statement from the Federation, the pay dispute that knocked off Tuesday's training session has been put to bed, and the players are now focusing firmly on the 2026 FIFA World Cup Africa playoff semi-final clash against the Panthers of Gabon. The match in Rabat, starting at 5 p.m., will be the 10th meeting between both teams, with the Eagles winning 5 of the previous 9 matches. The local organizing committee for the 2025 African Cup of Nations has launched a nationwide initiative to rally excitement and unity across Morocco ahead of the continental showpiece. The campaign, which kicked off on November 11, will run for 30 days and cover all 12 regions of the kingdom, reaching more than 60 municipalities. The initiative seeks to spread the spirit of football beyond stadiums and urban centers that would include freestyle exhibitions, music shows, and meet and greet sessions with Moroccan football legends. England manager Thomas Tuchel has warned that there is no room for complacency when they face Serbia on Thursday night. Having qualified for the 2026 World Cup with 5-0 win over Serbia in their last match, Tuchel said fans should not expect same scoreline as the Scandinavian now have a new coach. Sports is back to you, Anne.
Thank you, Chris. And the main news again. President Bola Tinubu has urged news editors and journalists to perform their duties responsibly with fairness, wisdom, and a strong commitment to national service. The Senate to investigate INEC's delineation in Warri Federal Constituency, Delta State, after petition highlighted alleged irregularities, bias, and marginalization in boundary adjustments. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawado. Have a wonderful night rest.